Part 77. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Se Nian Bai. Chapter 761. Knock, 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 someone knocked on the door softly. Baok CEO Qian was processing documents and said without raising his head, "Come in." The door opened and Lao Jin from the marketing department walked in with a stack of documents, smiling. Sometimes people need to be hit. Some people are unable to recover after being hit and blame others. Some people work hard secretly and aspire to revenge. Some people can recognize the facts and correct their mentality. Lao Jin from the marketing department belongs to the third type of people. Probably because of his age, he has less hostility and sharpness, and his edges are smoothed, so he can recognize the reality more clearly. Although he has always been dissatisfied with CEO Qian, the young man, the facts have proved that he is capable and is about to join the board of directors. Lao Jin has completely lost his temper, so the previous dissatisfaction gradually faded, and instead, he wanted to work hard with this young and promising boss, and maybe he could have a good future and spend the rest of his life comfortably. "Lao Jin, what's the matter?" CEO Qian was still working without raising his head. Lao Jin is sometimes right to complain. This Mr. Qian is capable, but he is sometimes a little mean and indifferent to his subordinates. Mr. Qian, Daowin Cinema held a Qatar meeting, chaired by the group's general manager Su Ming. Lao Jin put the document in his hand on the table and said respectfully, "This is the internal meeting summary found by our marketing department." Hearing that it was related to Daowin Group and Su Ming, Mr. Qian finally raised his head. Just as he was about to take the meeting summary to read it, he suddenly frowned, stared at Lao Jin, and said dissatisfiedly, "Didn't I say it all? Don't do anything against Daowin." "I didn't," Lao Jin said blankly. "Then where did this meeting summary come from?" Mr. Qian pointed at the summary on the table. "It's someone else's internal meeting. How could our company know about it?" "Oh, Mr. Qian, you really wronged me this time," Lao Jin said aggrievedly. "Not only did our Bai get the meeting summary, I guess other theaters in the city now have such information on hand." "Huh?" Mr. Qian was stunned, and then reacted, "You mean, this was revealed intentionally by Daowin Group?" "No, which company would deliberately reveal the content of its internal meeting? It involves the company's internal information, and it's too late to keep it confidential. Could it be that Daowin Group is going to make some moves next, so it deliberately released false news to mislead its possible competitors?" "What big moves? Who are the competitors?" "It may not be a good thing to say that people are too smart. People who are too smart have thousands of thoughts, and their minds are full of twists and turns. They have a seven-hole mind, and they are calculating and working hard. On the contrary, confused people can often live a simpler and easier life. Look, Mr. Qian is only in his early 40s, but his face is full of wrinkles and his hair is full of white hair. He looks like a little old man in his 50s. It's all because he is too worried and tired." "Mr. Qian, I guess it shouldn't be fake news." Lao Jin was very sure this time. "Why do you think so?" Mr. Qian asked. "This meeting summary was released to all internal employees, especially those of Daowin Cinema, in the name of Daowin Group, so it was easy for us to get it." "He can't fool all his internal employees, right?" Lao Jin said. "That's strange." Mr. Qian was stunned. Lao Jin's words were true. For commercial purposes, the company's senior management may create some illusions for employees or exaggerate the goals, but they will never deceive employees purely. The leadership set a performance target of 2 billion this year, and in order to put pressure on employees, it was said to be 3 billion. This is possible. But the strategic direction is to go east, but tell employees to go west. This is impossible. That would be asking for trouble and seeking death. What is this Mr. Su thinking about?" With a doubtful attitude, Mr. Qian carefully read the meeting summary from beginning to end, word by word, 3 times. The summary is not a detailed meeting record, it is not long, it serves as a summary, and it is only 2 pages. To sum up, it mainly talks about a big problem. At present, the main task of Darwin cinema is not to expand externally or seek profits, but to continue to adhere to the style of good-looking movies on the basis of the existing good reputation, firmly exclude the influence of market factors, and walk its own way. In addition to the movie itself, the various services of the cinema must also keep up, so that the audience can enjoy high-quality services at low ticket prices. And according to the characteristics of the movies played in the cinema, the screening room will be transformed to a certain extent. Don't expand, focus on Yangchuan City, and build Yangchuan Darwin Cinema as a base camp and bridgehead. Don't expand, run the base camp with peace of mind. After reading it, Mr. Chien took a breath. He finally understood Su Ming's intention. This young man is really calm, even calmer than I thought. Mr. Chien, what does he mean this time? Old Jin really asked with a learning attitude. Mr. Chien thought for a while and said, 9 words. Ah, Old Jin was puzzled. Build high walls, store up food, and slowly become king. Mr. Chien said these 9 words word by word, and then explained calmly, in the fierce competition among theaters across the country, a new road suddenly emerged. Not only can it have a very good reputation, but if it is done well, it may not be impossible to make money. At this time, even if the big theaters will not participate in the competition, there will be many small capitals, and even officials will join in. After all, Darwin's approach is not high-tech and is not difficult to imitate. If he attacks at this time, he may not be able to deal with these opponents, and all his energy will be involved in the commercial war. Old Jin nodded and waited for Mr. Chien to continue. Good ideas are always there, but it is difficult to hold the benefits brought by good ideas in your own hands. Darwin is now implementing the strategy of having what others do not have and being better than others. Their biggest advantage is that they are the first to open an art theater chain, so they must maintain this advantage and focus their energy on one point. As long as they can achieve always imitated but never surpassed, Darwin will be considered a success. In the future, when people mention art theaters in Yangchuan City, or even in the whole country, Darwin will be the first one they think of. With this reputation, if they want to expand it, it will be a matter of minutes. Even if they don't have money, the bank will go to hurry to lend him the money. This Mr. Su is really amazing. Oh, that's why, Old Jin suddenly realized, and then smiled and said, Mr. Chien, you can see his plan at a glance, you are also an expert. Haha, being able to see it and being able to do it are not the same thing. I am just a wise man. After the event, Mr. Chien smiled and waved his hands, half modestly and half seriously said, if I were in the other place, I'm really not sure if I can resist the temptation to become bigger and stronger and rush into it rashly. Old Jin was about to flatter Mr. Chien, but Mr. Chien waved his hands and asked, if I'm not mistaken, Darwin has not contacted us yet, right? Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 762. When it comes to establishing a national chain of art theaters, Baok Group was the first to jump out and support Darwin Group as the leader. The two parties do not know each other, and have basically no business dealings or friendship. As one of the leading companies in the industry, Baok can put down his body and take the initiative to do this, and his good attitude is already obvious. As a matter of fact, Darwin Group, a new small business in the industry, should also express its gratitude. Just like a new employee who has just entered a unit with no background or foundation, and suddenly a leader clearly expresses his appreciation, this new employee should definitely take the initiative to visit him and express his gratitude. Mr. Chien, you are really insightful. There is really no contact. If you want to talk about this Darwin, is it too arrogant? Our proactive show of kindness is so obvious. Lao Jin's tone was quite dissatisfied. This Darwin Group seems to be a bit arrogant. Yes, You have temporarily won the first place in the box office in Yangchuan City, but after all, Daowin Cinema only has one store, and even the Daowin group behind it is just an unlisted private enterprise. What qualifications do you have in Baok, an old listed company? Showing off in front of the group? According to Lao Jin's opinion, Daowin Group should have come to express their gratitude tactfully, or even firmly express their willingness to follow Baok. There is no shame in following the Baok Group. Just one cooperation is enough for a medium-sized enterprise to work hard for several years. Many large domestic enterprises dream of cooperating with Baok, but they have no chance, but Daowin Group does not appreciate it. Young people are still a little crazy. Lao Jin thought. Unexpectedly, Mr. Qian, the client who was lost face, looked like he didn't care at all, and waved his hands with a smile. That's right, Daowin is making a fortune in silence now. Do your part well and rashly, and it was not wise for us to contact you. Moreover, it seems that they don't want to be the first to take over the national chain of art theaters. Haha, I actually regret it these days. I originally thought of taking Daowin to the top. Although it is well intentioned, it seems a bit reckless. After all, Daowin's current reputation and strength are still a little bit behind. Maybe it's because he and Su Ming are both young cotters. Every time he talks about Daowin, Mr. Qian is in a good mood and says with a smile, "How do you put it in the words on the internet? Oh, force it, and it will turn into ashes. Ah. Very good. Even if they don't take the initiative to contact us, we shouldn't continue to be too enthusiastic, so as not to avoid others' suspicion. However, we are all in the theater industry, so we must have business dealings. Lao Jin, please pay attention to it in the future. If you can deal with the other party, it's best to choose Daowin as your partner. That's how friendship is built up bit by bit." "Leader, you are so big-hearted that you can push a boat." Lao Jin gave a thumbs up. "No wonder you can join the board of directors in your early 40s. For someone as young and promising as you, the entire Baok group can count them on their fingers." "Haha, Lao Jin, let's stop doing this." Mr. Qian said this, but he was actually quite happy in his heart. He waved his hands modestly and said with a smile, "To talk about youth, Mr. Su from Daowin seems to be only 24 this year. Right? Darling, it's really amazing. There are so many talents in this generation, we can't underestimate the world's heroes. What is the most efficient job in the world? Work that is handed over personally by the leader is most efficiently handled." In the afternoon of that day, Daowin Cinema received a letter from Yangchuan Baok Cinema to discuss cooperation matters. Before the National Day, the other party undertook the work of several local units in Yangchuan City to hold New Year's Day celebrations, using Baok's large theater stage. Large theater chains like Baok generally don't do this kind of work for undertaking evening parties and celebrations, at least not for ordinary units. They can't make much money and have to worry about it. Therefore, most of them are contracted to other small theaters or performance venues in the name of Baok Group planning. In this way, the other unit's face will be gained. Baok will not offend anyone, he can earn more or less, and he can also use this to give a favor to various performance venues in the downstream small theater chain, which can take care of many aspects. As for which small theater chain or performance venue to handle these projects, Baok has the final say. Big theater chains like Baok don't care about this small amount of money, but small companies still pay more attention to it. Firstly, they can make money. Secondly, they can take the opportunity to do some self-promotion, and thirdly, they can establish contact with the other party's units. Conducive to future business expansion. It can be given to A or B in the final analysis. It depends on who has a good relationship with Baok and has had good cooperation. Of course, there are some private human factors that cannot be exposed to the public. Therefore, this piece of cake that is not important to Baok is a sweet potato for small theaters. The previous Changi Cinema had undertaken such a task. However, in the past, the boss had to ask his grandfather to sue his grandmother in exchange for it. There were few places, the other company was not well known, and the price would be lowered. This is something that is often desired. Fortunately this time, Changi Cinema had just changed owners, and Baok Group took the initiative to send a series of 5-unit celebration projects from Christmas to New Year. Take the initiative to deliver it to your door. The staff and management of the theater basically come from Daewon Film and Television, and most of the ordinary employees are recruited. All of these people know the famous Baok Cinema line. But even the management from the film and television company never thought that the newly established theater would have any interaction with Baok. Daewon Cinema and Baok Cinema are not the same heavyweights at all. Who would have thought that not only would they meet, Baok would also rush to deliver business to his doorstep. Following the good reviews on the internet, the business delivered to Baok's doorsteps was like a shot of stimulant, completely inspiring the new employees and building up strong self-confidence. At the same time, I admire this young but unpredictable Mr. Su even more. Lao Su, during the meeting just now, someone suggested that since Baok took the initiative to show his kindness, should we give him a cheap cost price? Ho Long Tao asked, if you give him peaches and plums, you should give him wine in return. Su Ming did not answer directly, but asked with a smile, what do you think? As for the theater, he could not always take care of everything personally, and had to gradually let Ho Long Tao take over the responsibility. I think it's not necessary. Ho Long Tao smiled, according to the general direction of your plan, we are not in a hurry to establish an overly deep relationship with the major theater chains for the time being. We still have to do business first. Of course, we must do our best. Make these ceremonies beautiful and don't make it difficult for Baok. Okay, I'll do as you say. Su Ming smiled and patted Ho Long Tao on the shoulder. While the two were talking, Ho Long Tao's phone suddenly rang. As soon as he saw the call, his face sank slightly. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 763. It was Song Lulu who called again. About 3 days ago, Song Lulu's mother called for the first time. She called Ho Long Tao Little Ho affectionately and asked him to come to her house when he was free. After talking about a lot of random things, Song Lulu and her mother called Ho Long Tao several times in the past few days. Although she didn't say it directly, she said implicitly how good Ho Long Tao and Song Lulu were in the past, and how Song Lulu thought of him now. Anyone with a discerning ear could tell that she wanted to get back together. It's not that Ho Long Tao didn't consider it. It doesn't necessarily mean that you can't get back together after breaking up. Although the word break up can't be said casually, sometimes when you are angry, you can't guarantee that you will blurt out the words. Afterwards, think calmly, the relationship is hard won, and it may not be worth breaking up. But his situation is different from Song Lulu's. The two of them didn't break up because of a quarrel. He and Song Lulu are not the same kind of people at all. It was a mistake for them to be together in the first place. Two people with different values, barely together, constantly have various conflicts in values, which accumulate bit by bit and will eventually lead to a big explosion. This is the case with him and Song Lulu. Now calmly thinking, even if they get back together, the current problems seem to be solved, and various conflicts will continue to arise in the future. So he refused directly. Unexpectedly, this refusal made Song Lulu and her daughter explode. The good words at the beginning turned into bad words. They made several calls in a row, and they cursed Ho Long Tao angrily as soon as they opened their mouths. Ho Long Tao didn't answer and hung up the phone directly. Su Ming smiled on the side. Every family has its own problems. Ho Long Tao must have been reborn emotionally and financially after experiencing this. Everyone has emotional problems, and Su Ming himself has too. After returning from Hong Kong, Su Ming finally met the legendary last gatekeeper boss, Nangong Yan's father, and future father-in-law Nangong Lei. The old man is, as his name suggests, he is decisive and swift in his actions. The first thing he said when they met was, "When are you going to do it?" Su Ming was dumbfounded at the time. When did the Nangong family become so easy to talk to? In the first few levels, Nangong Yan's uncles and aunts looked smiling, but they were all tests in secret. If they were not careful, these old generation would fall into the pit. It stands to reason that the boss guarding the level must be the most powerful. Su Ming has made n kinds of preparations, and is ready for a bloody battle. Who knew that it would be so smooth? There was not even a little confrontation, and he passed the level smoothly. Not only did he pass the level, but the boss guarding the level suddenly turned against him. Not only did he not stop him, but he also helped the warriors to push from behind. After thinking about it for a while, he suddenly realized it. Speaking of the gatekeeper boss, that was a joke. Nangong Lei is her biological father. How could he not want his daughter to be happy? No matter how unreasonable he is, he can't make things difficult for his future son-in-law. As a father-in-law and mother-in-law, they can only talk about their daughter. This is the same as Su Ming's mother always criticizing Su Ming and praising Nangong Yan. They are good to each other for the sake of their children. As for the test, it can't be said that there is no test. The previous meeting of several uncles was really a series of tests, and the journey that Nangong Yan and I have gone through was also a test. It has come to this point. But I didn't expect that this future father-in-law would speak so directly, which made Su Ming sweat. "Don't scare the child with what you said." The future mother-in-law rolled her eyes at Nangong Lei, brought a bowl of cut fruits, and said with a smile, "Xiao Su, you young people are all busy with your careers. When to get married is your own business. Although uncle and aunt also hope that you can settle down as soon as possible, they will definitely not interfere." That being said, Su Ming is not a child, and he can still hear the meaning. The old father-in-law and mother-in-law must hope that he and Nangong Yan's affairs will be settled as soon as possible. She followed him, quit her job, and invested all her energy in her career. Nangong Yan was almost unreserved, and until now, she is still a girlfriend. To be honest, girlfriend and boyfriend are extremely special identities. Today's intimate lover may become a stranger overnight, which is not as stable as an ordinary friend relationship. As parents, of course they will consider their daughter's future. Both he and Nangong Yan are less than 24 years old, and it is a bit early to get married in Yangchuan City, a second-tier city. However, considering that his career has been rocketing upwards over the past year, Nangong Yan's parents certainly hope that the two of them can settle their affairs one day earlier to give Nangong Yan a guarantee. This small family dinner today is about this issue. "Mom and Dad, we agreed to have a meal. Why are you talking about this again?" Nangong Yan slightly glared at Nangong Lei. "Why can't we talk about it when we have a meal?" Nangong Lei said in a deep voice. "Is there anything wrong with talking about family matters when we have a meal together?" Okay, I won't talk about it." The future mother-in-law tried to smooth things over, stood up and picked up a piece of braised chicken wings for Su Ming, and said with a smile, "Xiao Yan has been able to cook this dish since she was a child. Su Ming, you try it." "Thank you, Auntie." Su Ming took a bite of the chicken wing and his heart moved. Nangong Yan almost never mentioned marriage to him, but after spending time together day and night, how could Su Ming not see what she was thinking? Not mentioning it doesn't mean not wanting it. Su Ming roughly guessed Nangong Yan's thoughts. First, she didn't want to put pressure on herself. Second, this girl had her stubborn and arrogant side. She was willing to give her feelings, and she didn't want it to become an equivalent exchange that had to be reciprocated. She didn't want to use feelings and giving as bargaining chips. She should hope that both parties had a tacit understanding. If they loved, they loved. There was no need to talk about it, and she didn't need to take the initiative to mention anything. But at this time, Su Ming felt that he should express something. Uncle and aunt are right. We have been together for quite a while, and we have almost gotten used to each other. My career is not that big now, but at least I have a career that is on track. It is time to put marriage on the agenda. This was said to Nangong Yan. After saying this, she smiled at Nangong Lei and his wife. Uncle and aunt, don't worry. My mother said that I will invite you to dinner next time. The parents of both sides will discuss what to do then. This is a meeting between kings. In the traditional Chinese sense, this matter can basically be confirmed. Hearing Su Ming say this, Nangong Yan's mother smiled and picked up another piece of meat for Su Ming. Nangong Lei hummed and raised his glass to shake it at Su Ming. Drink. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 764. After a successful start, Ho Longtao resolutely implemented Su Ming's strategic plan, insisting on not expanding and building a good reputation for Yangchuan Daowen cinema. The cinema entered a healthy operation stage, and Su Ming was gradually able to withdraw from daily management. As expected, news came from other places that about 4 or 5 cities across the country took the lead in establishing art cinemas, imitating the model of Daowen cinema and supporting niche films. It seems that Daowen has lost the initiative, and some people secretly feel sorry for Daowen. If Daowen had laid out earlier, it might have taken the lead nationwide and taken the lead in building art cinemas. Now that local officials and local cinemas have begun to intervene, it is not easy for Daowen to intervene. Some people also believe that the national market is huge, with hundreds of cities, and only a few cities have established art cinemas. If Daowen takes action now, it is still in time. Su Ming paid special attention to it. These cities that took the lead in establishing art cinemas have adopted roughly the same model, led by local officials, and local well-known major cinemas participate in the joint formation of art cinemas. This is reasonable. The benefits of art theaters cannot be compared with those of commercial theaters. For large theater chains, it is a piece of chicken ribs that can be abandoned without regret. If there is no official leadership through administrative regulation, it is impossible for theater chains to take the initiative. Since it is led by the official, it is bound to be difficult to hand this matter over to a certain theater chain. Whether it is the so-called sharing of benefits or the consideration of sharing the blame, it must be the collective participation of the local theater industry. Also paying attention to foreign art theaters is Baok Group. Lao Jin from the marketing department said with some regret, "It is better to make up for the loss. Daowen should take advantage of the market and make up for it quickly, at least occupy the art theater market in the province." Mr. Qian smiled and said, "Why do you want to do it now? What if you get burned?" Mr. Jin didn't quite understand what Mr. Qian meant. Many of Mr. Qian's information came from the upper level, and it was not convenient to tell Lao Jin directly. He just smiled and said, "Go ahead and do your work." Baok Cinema Line has layouts in major cities. Among the 5 cities that have established art theaters, 4 have the participation of Baok Group. Due to the official leadership, art cinemas were established very quickly, but there were many problems. The leaders of Baok in the 4 cities generally responded that they were not optimistic about the prospects. This thing does not make money, or the efficiency of making money is not as high as commercial films, so the interest of large cinema chains is naturally not high, and it is impossible to invest too much energy. The leaders sent are marginal figures in their respective units and have no voice, so they cannot win excellent resources. The abilities of these marginal figures are relatively average, which means that art cinemas are destined to be second-rate or even third-rate in terms of talent, material resources, and financial resources. At the same time, the relationship between the leader and the executor is also a problem. The leadership class is separated from the actual execution class, and the interests of the leading leadership class are not linked to the performance of the art cinema. Some leaders do not even understand the film market at all. The most troublesome point is that there are too many specific executors. A small art cinema has 3 or 4 large cinema chains involved. There are too many contradictions, and some are almost difficult to reconcile. The cinema was built, but the cinemas in the 4 cities, combined, have only shown less than 100 shows so far, and even the films have not been completely determined. A lot of energy has been used to deal with internal conflicts, and it seems that many conflicts cannot be resolved at all. The more they are dealt with, the more chaotic it becomes. In this situation, if Darwin takes action again, it will be like trying to get a chestnut from the fire, and it is easy to burn your hands. At least there is a chestnut to get when you are trying to get a chestnut from the fire, but what can you get now? The hatred of various theaters? The dissatisfaction of local officials? A lot of troubles that are difficult to sort out? If you take action at this time, you are a fool. Mr. Qian's idea is the same as Su Ming's. The last instruction Su Ming gave to Ho Longtao was to stay put, accumulate strength, and wait and see. It will not be too late to save the situation after the fire is out or all the troubles are burned. The cinema has come to an end for the time being. Su Ming looked at his schedule and there seems to be nothing special that needs his attention recently. Being the helmsman of this group is both difficult and simple. He just needs to set the general direction and framework, hire the right people, and then follow the established development. He has nothing to do. As for the market development and relationship maintenance that he originally needed to worry about, they are not the focus of the entire Darwin. The reason is that good products are easy to sell. Some people in the Yangchuan City Forum have also discussed this point. Yangchuan City Darwin Group has risen rapidly in a year, and the real helmsman of Darwin Group is very mysterious to most people. Except for the first few months, he rarely attends any public events, but the occasional news is eye-catching. Some people say that this boss came in casually, while others think that Su Ming is behind the scenes and playing a big game. Only Su Ming himself knows that the smooth development of Darwin's enterprises is half because he has taken the right path, and the other half, or even most of the reason, comes from the help of friends of animals. Speaking of friends of animals, the zoo has been a little deserted recently. A large number of animals have been transferred to participate in the filming of World of Warcraft. Not only animals but also an old friend, Uncle Cage, participated in the filming of Warcraft. After the filming of Warcraft started, several investors had a headache about casting. With such a large investment, it can be regarded as a well-deserved blockbuster in Hollywood. It must have actors with a certain degree of fame to participate in the film. However, the big names in Hollywood have terrifyingly high salaries. Even though the investment is more than $100 million, it is really difficult to hire a few big names. As for Uncle Cage, he is in a low period. His fame and strength are still there, but there are too many bad movies. He is almost a box office poison. Hollywood investors will certainly not hire such a person. For Cage, starring in a big movie like Warcraft, which has investment, fans, and fame, is the best choice. If Warcraft can become popular, Uncle Cage can fight a comeback with it. It is not a problem to become a first-line male star again. Hollywood has never been a place where age and appearance speak. If Warcraft is made into a bad movie, Cage will still not lose. This kind of movie adapted from a world-class game will inevitably receive high attention. Even if it is made into a bad movie, it is a big bad movie that attracts much attention. He can also use this to reappear in the eyes of public opinion and the audience. The two parties hit it off immediately and received a symbolic part of the film remuneration. Uncle Cage also introduced another equally outdated big-name actor to the film, Keanu Reeves. This actor, who once starred in a series of blockbusters such as The Matrix, Speed, and Interview with the Vampire, debuted as a young and handsome man and became famous in Hollywood. After experiencing the midlife crisis, he, like Cage, is quite down and out. Cage plays the fallen archmage Medivh, and Keanu Reeves, after losing weight, plays the new generation mage Kadger. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 765. After the two male lead actors were confirmed, the style of the whole movie immediately went up, or at least it looked very high. These two were once the top male stars in Hollywood and were well known in the world. Before the Warcraft movie started shooting, the news of the cooperation between the two parties had been released through various channels, attracting considerable attention worldwide. Players of World of Warcraft games, movie lovers, fans of these two people, and colleagues in the industry are all looking forward to what kind of Warcraft movie this unknown investor can make. The movie was filmed in Romania and Ireland in advance, and many of them were the filming locations of the original Lord of the Rings series and the current popular Game of Thrones. One of them has some relationship with Su Ming. Karajan, where the Archmage Medivh lives in the movie, is a castle, which was filmed in an old castle in the mountains of Romania. Last time in Hong Kong, the castle that Su Ming won from the British Princess Eugenie happened to be in the same mountain range as the castle where the filming was done. Although the straight line distance is not close, due to the sparse population in the mountains, they can actually be called neighbors. In fact, it is not too coincidental. In ancient Europe, Romania was a place where wars were frequent. In particular, the Carpathian Mountains where the castle is located often became the focus of contention between the two sides of the war due to the terrain. Over the past few hundred years, many castles have been built in the mountains, and many of them have been preserved to this day. The castle of Grand Duke Vlad, the prototype of the famous vampire Count Dracula, is in the mountains, and is not far from the castle of another famous female vampire, Countess Bathory. The Hoya forest in the mountains is also known as the Bermuda Triangle of Romania, where supernatural activities and inexplicable phenomena often occur. It is normal for a place with ancient history and mysterious legends to be chosen as the filming location for a magic movie. Princess Unikin was willing to mortgage the castle to Su Ming for this reason. This place is remote, dilapidated, and quite eerie. There is really no other meaning to keep it except to keep spending money in it. Su Ming turned on the computer and looked at the recent work schedule. There was nothing particularly important in the near future. "Hello, what are you doing?" he called Nangong Yan. Nangong Yan's voice was quite noisy, as if in a factory. The machine roared, and she said loudly, "I'm in the printing factory. I need to change the manuscript for the next issue of the internal magazine. I came to see you temporarily." "Oh, don't worry about these trivial matters. It's tiring." Su Ming smiled. "Let's go to Romania together next week." "Ah. Wait a minute, I'll find a quiet place to tell you." The roar of the machine on Nangong Yan's side gradually weakened. She probably walked out of the factory and asked curiously, "Why did you think of going to Romania?" "It's cold. That place is close to the Black Sea and the climate is suitable. It's just right for a vacation." Su Ming smiled. "Oh, I have a castle there." "Ah. Castle. Just brag. Well, okay, I'll take care of the things at hand, and you book the tickets." Nangong Yan didn't take the castle too seriously. In the eyes of ordinary people, a castle is not like buying a house. A few million is enough, and in Europe, if you don't have a certain identity, rich people won't sell you a castle. Su Ming's current economic strength and social status don't seem to be enough. Su Ming didn't explain anything, just said okay, and hung up the phone. He called the director's office again and asked Sister Tong to book a flight to Romania online. Just after the notification, someone knocked on the door in a hurry. Su Ming looked up and said, "Come in." A young man in his 20s pushed the door open and came in wearing a vest with Daowen Tourism printed on it. Xiao Zhang, the tour guide of Daowen Tourism Company, was sweating in the cold weather. "What's wrong?" Su Ming asked curiously. Xiao Zhang didn't care about being polite, and said with a bitter face, "Leader, something happened in the reserve." Su Ming frowned slightly. What could happen in the reserve? Besides, even if something happened, Yang Tao should solve it. How could he report it directly to himself? Now the Orgrimmar Reserve has been officially renamed the Daowin Reserve. This is inevitable. A Chinese reserve is always called Orgrimmar, which is always inappropriate. Daowin Reserve, this name was approved as soon as it was reported, and it was well received by experts, officials, and the public. A name full of traditional Chinese temperament. After the name change, Yangchuan City Propaganda Department and Daowin Group cooperated and spent a lot of effort on publicity. Daowin Travel Agency was responsible for the reception and opened up a tourist route. It was still the tone set by Su Ming at the beginning. The number and frequency of tourists must be controlled at a certain scale. However, there were too many people who signed up to participate, so they could only use the lottery method. A tourist was detained. Mr. Yang is handling it on the spot. The media and officials are here. You should go and see it quickly. The tour guide Xiao Zhang had a sad face, as ugly as seeing a ghost. Su Ming was stunned. What does detained mean? Who detained it and how did they detain it? Detaining tourists is not a trivial matter. Maybe in other travel companies, this kind of thing is normal, but Daowin is not. The reason why Daowin can successfully come to this day is that word of mouth is an invisible magic weapon. Where is Yang Tao? Su Ming asked. Mr. Yang is coordinating and directing on the spot. Coordinating and directing? Didn't he detain it? Su Ming asked. No, you'll know if you go and see, it was seized from animals, said the tour guide depressedly. Animals detain tourists? Come on, take me to the scene. Su Ming frowned, stood up and strode out of the office. Daowin Reserve is still some distance away from the zoo. Su Ming directly called Tony, started the Hummingbird helicopter, and went straight to the reserve with the tour guide. On the way, I roughly knew what happened. It was indeed detained by animals. At 8 o'clock this morning, a group of tourists took a special tour bus to enter the reserve and arrived at Orgrimmar City, now it should be called Daowin Ancient City. According to regulations, after entering the reserve, tourists are not allowed to move freely except for a few open areas, such as the cabins at the end of lure, to avoid interfering with the lives of animals. But they can move with the team, and the travel company has arranged many interesting activities. For example, under the guidance of a group of armored and spear-wielding baboons, you can visit the walls of Daowin Ancient City. Accompanied by a tour guide, you can help crocodiles brush their teeth and clean the meat shreds in their teeth. Together with pandas and elks, you can go to the back mountain to find wild bamboo shoots. In short, the activities are rich and colorful, even unheard of, and you will not feel bored, but you must be accompanied by relevant personnel or animals and cannot walk around at will. This is different from the 3 Daowin hills in the back mountain. The 3 Daowins such as the Demon Realm are actually artificial attractions. There is no danger or disturbing animals. It is to protect animals and people. Among the tourists today, 2 people somehow left the team. The tour guide searched for a long time and finally found each other in a big tree hole. A large group of ferocious animals were guarding around and refused to let other humans approach. They were detained like this. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 766. 2 tourists who broke away from the large group wandered around the reserve alone, but were detained by the animals. They are now locked up in the mountains and refuse to let them go no matter what. The people from the travel agency tried their best to lure the kidnappers away by feeding them food and threatening them, but the animals remained unmoved. Instead, more and more animals came and surrounded the hostages. It has 3 floors inside and 3 floors outside. Without weapons, humans are really no match for animals, not to mention that even the gun-toting lure rangers in the mountains are on the side of the animals this time. Soon, like a clearing out, all other humans in the reserve were driven out, and all the humans who were originally in the reserve were also driven out. It may be that fellow tourists sent messages online or called the police. Soon, even the local news media and officials got the news and sent people to come. Yang Tao personally came forward to deal with it on the spot. The plane arrived at the Liangjiguan Pass. In mid-air, I saw a large group of people standing on the fairly flat mountain road in front of the pass. 2 police cars even drove up with their lights flashing, and a large group of tourists pointed at them. Pointing, on the other side, there were several leaders-looking people standing, protected by a group of police officers. Yang Tao was negotiating something with the other party. Liangji Pass is the only way to enter the reserve. The terrain is narrow. The 2 pandas didn't know what they thought at first, but they led the animals to build a high wall similar to the pass here, which can be regarded as a dividing point between the human world and the animal world. At this critical moment, in addition to a few guarding baboons, there were many other animals, looking down from above and staring at the humans below. It was not clear whether the humans were visiting the animals or the animals were visiting the humans. Seeing Su Ming's helicopter land, Yang Tao and several local officials strode towards the plane from a distance. "Oh, Mr. Su, you're finally here." The person at the front is the director of the Yangchuan Tourism Bureau, surnamed Tian. He is in his early 40s, a very young cadre, and was promoted to director this year. To say that other Yangchuan city government departments may not have a close relationship with Daowin Group, the Tourism Bureau is different. Daowin supports almost half of the entire tourism industry in Yangchuan City. It is said that Daowin Group is Yangchuan. It is no exaggeration to say that he is the #1 giant in the city's tourism industry. He is the target of key protection and care in the Tourism Bureau. Even the director in charge of fisheries, agriculture, and forestry, that is, the original director, did not have such a close relationship. Su Ming had interacted with Director Tian a lot and was considered an acquaintance. He greeted him with a smile. "Boss, thank you for your hard work." "Xiao Su, let's not say those polite words and quickly think of ways to save people." "Are you okay?" Su Ming knew that there were pandas in charge, and the animals in the reserve should not harm humans, but he still had to ask, so as not to reveal his mistakes. "Fortunately, everyone is fine. But you animals, hey, you have to come." Director Tian was also quite depressed. If it were a human kidnapper, he could have sent armed police to directly rescue him, but that could not be done for the animals in the reserve. These animals were either nationally protected animals or star animals. This Daowin Reserve was also a rare natural park in the country. It has made a huge contribution to tourism in Yangchuan City. It is very troublesome whether it is public opinion or accountability. Of course, human life is more important than that of animals. If there is a last resort, even if the animals are killed, humans must be rescued. What makes Director Tian particularly troublesome is that the superior's intentions are worth pondering. They did not send comrades from the Public Security Department or the Armed Police Department to take charge of the matter. Instead, they sent him, the tourism director, to take charge of the scene and assist the police. This shows that the superiors hope that this matter can be resolved peacefully and not lead to bloodshed. Lao Tian originally thought of a few animals. If it didn't work, he would give him an anesthesia injection. If he still couldn't handle it, he could kill 1 or 2 animals at a critical moment. Unexpectedly, when I arrived at the scene, I saw that my scalp was huge. All the previous tourists had withdrawn from the reserve. A large group of animals were guarding the 2 boundaries. From the images transmitted from the helicopter, the animals surrounding the hostages were so numerous that it was hard to say. There are dozens of them. If this is serious, then it will have to be a war, or a massacre, killing hundreds of animals. This blame is so big that no one can bear it. but the blame for not saving people is even greater. Everyone knows that the animals in Yangchuan City are humane and smart. Lao Tian immediately found Yang Tao, but Yang Tao had no idea. Usually, the animals in the reserve would give him a bit of a thin face, but today, for some unknown reason, the animals didn't show any concern at all. Buy it? Oh, oh. Just as he was talking, there was a commotion not far away. It turned out that several armed policemen wearing explosion-proof suits and shields wanted to try to rush in and save people. As soon as we reached the foot of Liangjiguan, we were spotted by the big baboons from Chengguan who were as fat as piglets. These guys stood on the wall of Liangjiguan with their big bellies. The wall was filled with all kinds of things. All kinds of fruits, such as pears, apples, and peaches, were suddenly smashed like a violent storm. Although the fruit cannot kill anyone, it can be thrown down by a gorilla with strong arms from the height of 3 floors. It is very uncomfortable to be knocked unconscious even if it is hit. Pears and apples are better, watermelons, winter melons and large pumpkins, but if one of them is really smashed, it will really kill you. The air stinks, damn, there are durians. Several armed policemen retreated helplessly. Su Ming took a brief look at the scene. The mood of the tourists who had come out was quite stable. Most of them did not have any fear, but seemed to be watching the fun. Before he could give Director Tian a reply, several reporters' microphones were raised. Director Su, what do you think of this incident? Is the life of an animal more important, or the life of a human being? Is it because too many tourists have entered recently that the animals have become aggressive? The media relies on news. If there is breaking news, of course they will rush to report it. Fortunately, Daowen Group has always had a good relationship with the major local media. The questions these reporters asked were quite neutral and did not stop Su Ming from coming to Taiwan. Dear reporters, Mr. Su has just arrived and we don't understand the situation yet. We will answer everyone's questions when things are clear. Yang Tao smiled and pushed away the microphone. Su Ming nodded to him and said, I'll go in and take a look. You stay here with everyone. Return, Yang Tao said. Put on protective clothing and a helmet. Director Tian quickly asked someone to send him a set of explosion-proof clothing, and sent Su Ming to the front line closest to the attack range of the fruit bomb. Then he whispered, Director Su, you must be careful, you are an animal after all, so don't let anything happen to you. Su Ming was not originally going to wear an explosion-proof suit, but after thinking about it, he took it and put it on, saying, Don't worry, leader, most of these animals were trained by me, so it's not a big problem. There's one more thing. Director Tian thought about it for a moment, and then said directly, if you can't save people this time, then the armed police will be parachuted in to rescue people. By then, I'm afraid there will be damage. To put it mildly, to put it bluntly, if Su Ming couldn't handle it, he would have to shoot the animal. No matter what, human life is still important. Understood, don't worry, leader, I won't make it difficult for you. Su Ming nodded with a smile and strode forward. Director Tian subconsciously wanted to follow him. As soon as he stepped aside, the sky darkened, and a durian the size of a small basketball roared down from the sky and hit the ground in front of him. Lao Tian was startled and subconsciously retracted his foot. This scene was also captured by the reporters present. The Yangchuan City TV reporter said to the recording camera in a passionate voice, the heroic figure we see now is none other than Su Ming, the director of the Yangchuan City Zoo. After learning that the tourists were trapped, Director Su went into the reserve to rescue them alone. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 767. Seeing someone approaching, the big baboon on the wall raised a big watermelon and was about to smash it. Are you looking for death? Su Ming raised his head and yelled at the big baboon. The red-haired big baboon has poor eyesight and is a legendary nearsighted person. He heard the voice sounded familiar. He squinted his eyes and looked for a long time, but he couldn't recognize who it was, but the mental power transmitted was very familiar, and he recognized Su Ming at once. The big baboon put down the watermelon he was holding, turned his face up, put a finger in his mouth and sucked it, pretending that nothing had happened. "Okay, stop pretending." Su Ming rolled his eyes and called the door downstairs. Soon, a creaking sound came from inside, and the two thick doors opened a crack. The door suddenly opened up, and several bison were strolling and eating grass with their heads down. Don't think these guys are very honest now. If someone breaks in by force, it will be very uncomfortable to be hit by them. The bison can even overturn a car when it runs and hits it with all its strength. Su Ming walked up to a big bison and patted its back. The bison, which was very violent, swung its tail, bent its two front legs and leaned down. Su Ming pressed on the back of the bison and turned over to straddle its broad back. The big bison shook its head and carried Su Ming towards the reserve. Along the way, it was like entering an animal kingdom. The density of animals seen was far more than that of ordinary wild environments, almost as high as that of zoos. Not far to the east of Orgrimmar City, there is a fairly wide river. There is only one bridge on the river for tourists to pass. The bison did not go up the bridge, but carried Su Ming straight into the water. Both bison and buffalo are born swimmers. They can float on the water with a person in tow without any effort, creating ripples and swimming towards the other side. On both sides of the shore, there are many animals coming to drink water. Several large turtles are lazily lying on the shore to bask in the sun. Not far away, a somewhat scary large saltwater crocodile has its mouth wide open and its eyes narrowed into a slit. A small hummingbird is going in and out of the mouth of the large saltwater crocodile, looking for food left between its teeth. Several smaller Yangtze alligators floated out of the water, revealing their small eyes and looking at Su Ming. On the back of one of the Yangtze alligators, there was actually an otter lying. The little otter had shiny fur all over its body, and it was lying on its back with a shell on its belly and a stone in its little claws. Dong, dong, dong. The little otter used his belly as a chopping board and hit the shell with a stone several times. He smashed the shell and took out the tender meat inside. Just as he was about to eat it, he saw Su Ming approaching on a big bison. The little guy hesitated for a moment, and reluctantly picked up the meat with his little claws and handed it to Su Ming. "Hey, little guy, thank you, you can eat it yourself." Su Ming laughed and tapped the otter's head with his little finger. The little otter swooped from the back of the Yangtze alligator to the back of the bison, sat behind Su Ming, and gnawed the meat inside the shell. Su Ming couldn't understand. It was peaceful here. Even animals that were originally natural enemies could live in peace. Why did they kidnap two humans? What bad things did those two people do? What made the heavens and people resentful? After getting ashore, he used his mental power to contact Yingying and Lele. The two guys actually made two big wheelchairs and ran out to greet Su Ming. "What's wrong?" "Disabled." Su Ming was stunned. When the two pandas saw Su Ming, they rolled down the wheelchair and ran to Su Ming, pulling him from the left and right, and acting like a spoiled child. "Oh my God, I'm not disabled." The wheelchair was like an ancient two-wheeled carriage, but it had no roof, and was covered with branches and hay as a mat. There was a wild horse in front of each wheelchair. Su Ming pouted at the wheelchair, "You two are the kings, but you are abusing animals." Yingying and Lele shook their heads quickly. Su Ming separated two mental powers and came into contact with the two wild horses pulling the cart. He found that the two coolies were actually quite happy. It made sense. Horses are originally a kind of beast of burden. "Let's go and see the people." The two young men and women were locked in a house in Orgrimmar. The house was actually a large tree hole, where three white-headed leaf monkeys originally lived. There is now a large group of beasts outside the cave, including lions, tigers, crocodiles, dogs, and bears. On the treetops above the cave, There are also several vampire monkey bats hanging upside down, and 2 vultures are circling in the air. Several lure forest rangers with guns are distributed around, and it seems that they are also guarding the 2 people. Looking at this situation, even if a few armed police really come, it will be useless, and it may cause a bigger incident. Seeing a person in an explosion-proof suit approaching, the 2 men and women in the cave waved desperately at Su Ming as if they saw a savior. Probably because they were afraid of alarming the surrounding beasts, the 2 people were anxious and did not dare to make too big movements. They did not even dare to shout. The silent shout, judging from the shape of their mouths, should be help. "Don't be afraid, don't be afraid, it's okay," Su Ming shouted at the 2 people, and then asked the lure forest rangers who came to meet him what was going on. Why did the animals detain the 2 people for no reason? Even if these 2 people did not follow the rules and acted on their own, it would be enough to scare them. There is no need to make such a big fuss. Before the forest ranger spoke, the panda Lele couldn't wait to howl twice. "What are you doing? You are a panda, isn't it okay for you to imitate the wolf's howl?" As soon as the howl fell, several white-headed langurs came running over from not far away. The white-headed langur is a national first-class protected animal with a history of more than 3 million years. As its name suggests, its head and shoulders are white. This monkey is one of the 25 most endangered primates in the world and is recognized as the rarest monkey in the world. It is even rarer than the golden monkey and is unique to China. If Su Ming remembered correctly, the tree hole where the 2 tourists were imprisoned, or the old tree, was the home of the white-headed langur. The 3 monkeys ran to Su Ming, stood up, and squeaked at him. They gestured with their front paws, and no one knew what they wanted to express. But they looked very angry, and their fangs were exposed. "What happened? Lord God, they are injured," the lure forest ranger said in stuttering Chinese. "Ah, aren't they quite lively? They are jumping around." Su Ming was stunned. "They didn't look injured. They were more like being angry." "How did the 2 tourists make them angry?" Panda Lele clapped his thick palms together, making a muffled sound. 3 white-headed langurs turned around in unison, sticking up their butts and aiming at Su Ming. 3 monkeys' butts were bald and red. Su Ming was stunned. "No, it's true that monkeys' butts are red, but they can't be so bare, especially white-headed langurs. This kind of monkey has a lot of hair on its butt, and a lot of it is white." Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 768. 3 little monkeys stuck their butts out at Su Ming at the same time. Su Ming didn't understand what they meant at first. "Are they going to fart at me?" But when he saw the bald monkeys' butts, Su Ming reacted immediately. Although the white-headed langurs don't have much hair on their butts, they are not so smooth. The butts of these 3 monkeys are like they have been shaved with a razor, revealing red skin, with a large bald area. Oh! Su Ming suddenly realized that the 2 tourists shaved the hair on the monkeys' butts. What the hell is wrong with this? Why shave the hair on the monkeys' butts? I've heard of people shaving the hair below, such as the blue dragon and white tiger, but shaving the hair of monkeys is really unheard of. Shaving is fine. And then Ying Ying held the hand of a slightly older white-haired langur and handed it to Su Ming to see. A few black little claws, there are no nails, and the sharp nails seem to have been cut off by some sharp weapon. Su Ming was completely confused. It was fine to shave the monkey's butt hair, but they also had to cut the monkey's nails? Are these 2 tourists misophobic and are here to help the monkey clean? For monkeys, the hair on their butts and the nails, or claws, are very important. Monkeys often sit on branches. They feel uncomfortable because they have no hair on their butts. The hair on their butts can not only serve as a cushion, but also act as a filter to prevent dirt from invading. Without hair, it is easy to cause urinary system diseases. As for claws, they are tools for climbing, hunting, eating, and scratching lice. Without claws, monkeys may fall down and be half dead because they can't hold on steadily while jumping on the tree. I don't know if these two people have mental problems or are just for fun. It seems to be a prank, but it actually caused great harm to the monkey, at least it is a safety hazard. Animals and humans are different creatures. Sometimes an action that seems insignificant to humans is fatal to animals. For example, if you give a pet dog human milk, it is likely to cause gastrointestinal problems and diarrhea to death. If you cut off a cat's whiskers, the cat will completely lose its sense of distance and direction, and it will not be able to walk well. If it is a wild cat, it will even greatly affect its hunting and starve to death. Okay, go back and recuperate. Su Ming was also at a loss whether to laugh or cry. The little monkey will not have a big problem in the reserve, but those two people are too ridiculous. It is necessary to teach them a lesson. First, call Director Tian and others outside to report safety, so that old Tian will not get excited and really arrange armed rescue by armed police, causing a real tragedy. Then turn off the intercom and say to the lure forest ranger with a stern face, "Bring those two people up." The two young men trembled through the group of beasts and came to the open space. Su Ming found a big rock and sat on it. A large group of animals surrounded them like a trial meeting. The two tourists were trembling with fear and stood in the field like prisoners. "What on earth are you two going to do? Shave the monkey's hair and cut its nails?" "I'm surprised you could think of that," Su Ming asked, crossing his legs. Speaking of fun and excitement, there is also a project to clean the teeth of crocodiles during the trip. Isn't that more fun and exciting than bullying monkeys? The male and female tourists were probably a couple, about the same age as Su Ming. The girl was so scared that her legs were shaking. She couldn't even stand steadily and supported the boy. The boy was not much better, his face was pale. "Comrade, we were wrong, we were really wrong." The boy's voice was trembling, and he took out a plastic bag from his pocket tremblingly. "The monkey hair and nails are all in here." A lure ranger took the bag and handed it to Su Ming. Su Ming opened it and saw that there were indeed a lot of gray-white hair, some keratin-like nails, and even a small nail clipper and a small razor for shaving. Su Ming wanted to slap him. "What on earth are you doing?" This was premeditated, they were just trying to play with these little animals. There are still a lot of loopholes in the security check. How could they let people bring in all these weapons? We must strengthen the inspection. Leader, the little boy was still very perceptive. He could tell at a glance that Su Ming was a leader. These two words spoken in a trembling voice actually added some points for him. Su Ming waved his hand. "What do you want these hairs and nails for, as souvenirs, or are you going to do something to make a curse on these monkeys?" "Leader, these are not what we want," the little boy said quickly. "Not what you want?" Su Ming was slightly stunned. "Speak clearly and tell the truth." Roar. The lions were like servants in the yamen. The boss spoke, and the lions raised their heads and roared at the couple, spraying the stars all over their heads and faces. The girl was so scared that she started to cry. The boy's legs softened and he sat on the ground, crying, "Leader, don't eat me, I'll tell you everything." Su Ming looked at the lions with satisfaction. They were big cats, but they were quite perceptive and worth training. "I won't eat your hair." The boy almost cried and spoke the truth in a broken voice. At first, he was probably scared and spoke incoherently. But he soon discovered that these ferocious animals seemed to obey the orders of the leader in front of them. As long as the leader did not give orders, they were safe. There was even a lion lying at the leader's feet like a docile cat. The leader took off his shoes and put his feet into the lion's long and warm mane to warm his feet. The young man gradually became bolder and spoke more fluently. "These two people are local college students in Yangchuan City. Speaking of which, they are actually Su Ming's alumni. They are only freshmen this year. The boy's name is Bai Chen. He was lucky enough to get a spot for this tour. It is definitely worth showing off to be able to come to the reserve for a trip. Even if you have money, you may not be able to do it. In the days before Bai Chen came, he was really proud for a few days and told everyone he met. Last night, a foreign visiting professor at the school found Bai Chen and asked him to find a primate with white hair from the reserve, the white-haired leaf monkey, and secretly bring some hair and keratin from the monkey to him for research. At that time, the professor said that these monkeys were rare primates, only in China. He would be returning to China soon and wanted to take them back to study some genetic technology. Bai Chen didn't think too much at the time. He just thought that if he only wanted some monkey hair and monkey keratin, it shouldn't hurt the monkeys, and the professor gave a very good reward, 5,000 Chinese yuan, which is almost half a year's living expenses for a college student. So there was today's accident. After Bai Chen and his girlfriend came to the reserve, they took the opportunity to leave the team and secretly cut the hair of several monkeys. It can be said that the animals in the reserve are more human and obedient. Generally, monkeys tolerated their tossing that time. The animals in the reserve are relatively close to humans, which gave him the opportunity to succeed. However, this scene was seen by the lure people who were patrolling with hyenas, and there was a small dispute between the two. The lure people were concerned and couldn't really do anything to the two college students. The two pandas didn't care. With a whistle, a large group of beasts came up and detained the two unlucky children. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 769. Do you want to study the hair and nails of the white-headed langur? Su Ming was slightly stunned. What to study? Professor Heisenberg didn't say it must be nails, but keratin. The little boy Bai Chen hurriedly explained, nails are the easiest and largest keratin. Su Ming nodded, but didn't say anything. He thought about it and had a bad feeling. The three little monkeys who had their hair shaved came out again at some point. They jumped onto the big stone that looked like a throne where Su Ming was sitting, scratching their ears and cheeks, chirping and calling softly, as if they wanted Su Ming to make the decision for them. The white-haired langur is mostly black, very similar to a chimpanzee, with only the shoulders, head, and buttocks white. The white hair on the head is high, like a white crown, or a ball of white flame burning. This monkey is very rare, even rarer than the giant panda. It has existed on the earth for 3 million years, and only in China. No living specimens or specimens have been found abroad so far. Genes are the deepest and most mysterious secrets of animals. A small section of genes can contain a vast amount of information. Different genes can lead to completely different functions. It can be said that genes determine the form of organisms. Why can birds soar in the sky, fish dive deep into the sea, elephants have 1,000 pounds of strength, and venomous snakes have dangerous venom? This is all related to genes. Su Ming graduated from a medical university and has some understanding of gene research. This science can be regarded as the most advanced science of mankind so far. Even high-tech such as nuclear technology and aviation technology cannot be compared with it. At the same time, due to the complexity of genes themselves, this is also the slowest progress and the shallowest research. For the research on the secrets of genes, most of them still remain at the level of reasoning and speculation. And unlike practical science, genetic science, especially animal genetic science, is too difficult to progress in research, so there are currently few that can be applied in practice. Instead, it requires huge investment and even has certain moral and ethical risks. Therefore, although it is very hot worldwide, there are few institutions that actually conduct research. Su Ming attended a lecture. The lecturer was an international genetic science expert. He talked about a lot of speculations about genetics. The most impressive part of Su Ming's speech was that if humans could crack gene fragments, master gene replication technology, and allow new genes to coexist with existing genes in a benign manner, then they could create supermen. Infinite power, going up to the sky and into the sea, genetic technology is known as the realm of God, the magic of studying the soul. Back to the present, the foreign professor was conducting biological research and wanted to collect genes from the white-haired langur, which was understandable. Su Ming still understood some of the superficial principles of genetic technology. The samples for genetic research must be stable and mature. The white-haired langur has lived on the Earth for more than 3 million years. So far, its genes can fully meet the requirements. The genes of the new species with only a few hundred or thousands of years of history, even including humans, are actually not very stable, or are still developing and changing. For example, there is only less than 20,000 years between the primitive people in the Shangding cave and modern people, but there are relatively large differences in form and function. There are no white-haired langurs in foreign countries. White-haired langurs are one of China's national treasures. Foreign research institutions cannot easily obtain them, so the foreigners asked Bai Chen to steal monkey hair for research. This series of events seems to be justified. Although the behavior of the foreign professor is not glorious, it is not too bad. But Su Ming always feels that something is wrong, as if it is too sneaky. He has come into contact with some foreigners, including scholars and people from the upper class. These people have one thing in common: they abide by laws and regulations. It cannot be said that they are born with high moral qualities, but the education they received since childhood and the social system they live in make them accustomed to abiding by laws and regulations. The cost of breaking the law is very high. Things like having sex with female students and falsifying papers are absolutely high risk in foreign universities. Once they are discovered, they are basically ruined. Therefore, foreign scientists generally do not do illegal acts for research. They would rather spend more energy to contact and appeal, use their own influence and financial resources, and propose bills through the members of parliament they support, so as to change the laws that are unfavorable to them, and they will not break the law. Do you have the information of that professor? Su Ming asked Bai Chen. Information? Bai Chen was stunned for a moment, then said, Professor Eisenberg is German, a visiting professor of our school, without a real job. Oh, by the way, he became a visiting professor this year. The girl next to him pulled his sleeve and whispered, Didn't you take a photo with Professor Eisenberg? Show it to the leader. Oh, yes. I almost forgot. The young man quickly took out his mobile phone from his pocket, turned on the screen and popped up the camera photo interface, found a photo, and then handed the phone to Su Ming. Leader, look, this is a photo I took with Professor Eisenberg after a lecture. Su Ming took the phone. The background of the photo was a very common large classroom. Su Ming even remembered this classroom. This was the 303 lecture hall of the medical university. When he was in school, he also attended lectures in it. There are two people in the center of the photo. One is Bai Chen, grinning foolishly, and the other is a tall white man with short, neat light blonde hair. His face has the typical angular features of a Germanic man. He is wearing a tight, straight suit and looks very handsome. Professor Eisenberg also smiled faintly, and in the sunlight projected in through the window, he looked like a god in a medieval statue. It's quite handsome. Su Ming smiled, sent the photo directly to his mobile phone, then deleted the sending record and his mobile phone number, and finally returned the phone to Bai Chen. Leader, you see, I have said everything I should say, Bai Chen asked in a low voice with courage. Su Ming thought about it. After all, the two students did not do anything bad. Even if they were handed over to the police, it would be nothing more than a criticism and education. He is much more mature than before, and often thinks in other people's shoes. If you put yourself in their shoes, when you were in school, someone offered you several thousand yuan to secretly go to the zoo to cut some monkey hair. You would probably do it. It's fun and exciting, and you can make money, and it won't really hurt animals. What can't you do? What's more, this kid has a girlfriend. Boys, who doesn't want their girlfriend to live a better life? Do you know you are wrong? Su Ming asked with a straight face. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 770. Su Ming gave the couple a lesson. The two young lovers were already scared. They were the ones who violated the rules and made mistakes. Of course, they didn't dare to talk back and kept apologizing. Okay, I'll take you out. Su Ming waved his hand and stood up to leave. The two of them lowered their heads and followed Su Ming out of Orgrimmar like children who had made mistakes. There was no conversation along the way. When they were about to leave the protection zone at the Two Realms Pass, the girl suddenly took two bold steps and walked side by side with Su Ming, whispering, "Leader, I have an unwelcome request. I wonder if I can tell you." Her boyfriend Bai Chen was slightly stunned, obviously not knowing what the girl was going to say. Su Ming's first thought was that my protagonist's charm aura had played a role again. After seeing his wise and powerful kingly aura, the girl decided to break up with her boyfriend and chase him. Want his phone number? Ahem. Recently, I have been thinking about something. I coughed and said seriously, "You say it, but I have to say it in advance. I may not agree." The girl seemed to be heard by someone. She looked around first. There were only animals around, and there was no fourth person. She whispered like a mosquito, "We know we are wrong. Can you please not tell others that we secretly cut monkey hair to make money? If it gets out, we will definitely be scolded to death by people on the internet, and the school will definitely give us a serious demerit, which will have a great impact on our future studies and job hunting. It is said that girls of the same age mature earlier than boys. This is not false at all." Bai Chen reacted and quickly agreed on the side, nodding his head, "Yes, yes, leader, the school is very strict. If you know that we do such uncivilized behavior, we will definitely be punished and criticized. My scholarship this year will be gone." I thought about it carefully on the way. The nature of this matter is no longer uncivilized. If it is serious, it is to help foreigners steal the national treasures of our country for money. Aren't we traitors? The girl was about to cry. The two young men looked at Su Ming pitifully, with a face full of pleading. "Little girl, you can think of the last point. It seems that you really realize your mistake. Bai Chen, you too, should use your brain in the future. You are already 20 years old." Su Ming nodded and said, "Okay, make up a suitable reason, tell the outside world, say that you have a stomachache, Bai Chen accompanied you to find a place to rest, and accidentally entered an animal's nest." The little girl blushed slightly, bit her lip and nodded, "Well, thank you, leader." After the three people unified their statements, they left the reserve. As soon as they walked out of the two-boundary pass, they were greeted by a strong flash and the sound of camera clicks. A white ambulance was on standby. Good news does not go out, but bad news spreads 1,000 miles. This is not necessarily a conclusion. Sometimes it is just the opposite. After Su Ming rescued the person, he had already contacted Director Tian and reported that he was safe. The crisis was resolved, but it could promote heroes. Director Tian, who manages the tourism industry in Yangchuan City, was of course happy to see it happen, so he notified many media. At this time, there were several times more media personnel at the Liangjiguan Pass than when Su Ming entered. They were crowded with people holding up their guns and cannons. "Director Su, what happened? Are there any people or animals injured? I am a reporter from Yangchuan Daily." "Hello, Director Su. When you were alone saving people, did you ever think about the danger?" Su Ming smiled and waved his hand, "Dear journalist friends, let the two trapped tourists check their physical condition first. I will talk to you later." After confirming the student identity and health status of the two tourists, a small storm came to an end. The Yangchuan city media reported a lot of articles. In the news, a safety accident turned into an accident. All parties were not blamed or blamed, but all had some contributions. Even the two college students were not blamed. Two couples of tourists, one of whom had her menstrual period early, went to rest with the other, but accidentally entered a den and was surrounded by wild animals. Fortunately, the animals in the Daowin Animal Reserve are more humane than ordinary wild animals after being trained by the Yangchuan Zoo. In addition, the Daowin Travel Company has been providing sufficient and high-quality food for the animals in the reserve, so the animals have no worries about food and clothing, so they did not harm the two tourists. In order to protect the safety of the two tourists, the Tourism Bureau rushed to the scene as soon as possible, and with the assistance of the police, the situation was controlled. Comrade Su Ming, director of the Yangchuan Zoo, rushed to the scene immediately after receiving the news, went deep into the reserve alone, and bravely rescued the two trapped tourists without regard for his personal safety when surrounded by a group of ferocious wild animals. Whether it is Daowin Travel Agency, Yangchuan Zoo, or me, we have always been committed to the harmonious coexistence of humans and animals, Su Ming said in an interview. Other gossip reports also came out. A tabloid found out that Su Ming and the two tourists were alumni of the same university. The medical university sent a banner to the Yangchuan Zoo to express its gratitude. Su Ming himself took this opportunity to donate 300,000 research funds to his alma mater, etc. The two young lovers were actually blessed in disguise, mainly because of the silly Bai Chen. As soon as the news report came out, the whole school knew that they were in love. Many people who had their eyes on his girlfriend knew that the girl was already taken, so they gave up. It is said that their class teacher also praised this guy, saying that he stood up at the critical moment and took care of and protected the female classmates, which was very manly. In short, stupid people have good luck. Do you think this foreigner is familiar? In Su Ming's office, a large projector projected a clear photo on the wall, which was a photo of Eisenberg and Bai Chen. In addition to Su Ming, Zhao Yun and Su Meng were also present. Su Ming asked these two questions. Su Meng stared at the photo for a long time and shook his head vigorously, while Zhao Yun frowned slightly and turned to look at Su Ming. I think he looks familiar, Zhao Yun said. I think so too, Su Ming nodded. The two looked at Su Meng at the same time. Su Meng opened his mouth and looked at them a little blankly. After seeing Eisenberg, Su Ming immediately thought of Su Meng. It's not that they look alike, but when he first saw them, both of them gave him a feeling of very familiar. After thinking about it, he couldn't think of anyone he knew. His facial features didn't look like any acquaintances, but overall, he felt familiar. Su Meng was like this at that time, and Eisenberg is also like this now. There is also a common feature, not everyone feels that they are familiar. At that time, Su Ming asked several people, and only Zhao Yun felt the same as him, thinking that Su Meng looked familiar. This Eisenberg is also like this now.